just accusing.
Good afternoon. I want to call back into session the December 5th, 2017 meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. And again, extend our welcome to those who joined us for the afternoon session. May have carried over from the morning session, although we did complete our order of business at the morning scheduled portion of the today's meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and call the roll, establish a quorum. I'll make a couple announcements, and then we'll get started. So,
Okay, Supervisor Cerna.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Peters. Here. Frost. Here. Natoli.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
thanks. And just would note, I know some folks have signed up on some of the afternoon items, and I have a number of folks that want to speak on item 44. I'll take those in the order they were handed to me, unless there's some other order when we get to that. And you certainly can change it up if you'd like to. But we do have a couple of items in advance of that, and we have some continuances that we'll get to, I guess, as well. So, Flo, I'll let you go ahead and walk us through this then.
I respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to take corrective action and rescind their motion for item number 38. It was the appeal of order after hearing to confirm report of abatement cost and resolution denying appeal and confirming report of costs for the property located at 7690 Florencia Lane. The appellant was not properly notified.
Okay. All right, so the maker of the motion, we need a rescission, I think.
So,
Okay. Seconder, I don't know, you, who's?
I believe it was Ms. Peters.
Okay, all right, so we have a, you seconder. I would second your motion then, and to rescind the previous action, and then to, we need to vote on that first.
Please.
I'd like to know before I
Oh.
agree to that, how he was notified, what was wrong with the notification.
He was not notified by certified mail as required, and did not receive a notification, and I found out subsequent to the vote.
Okay, then I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Unanimous vote. And then I need a motion to continue item 38 to January 9th, and we will schedule a time.
Okay, so a motion to continue?
Second.
Seconded, moved and seconded then to continue this to January 9th, and we'll set a time and provide the appropriate notification in advance of that hearing.
Correct.
All right, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, good. Thanks, Flo.
Okay, for your 2 o'clock item, it's item 41. It's the update on the implementation of the Voters' Choice Act.
Okay, all righty. And we'll call Mr. Levine forward. I don't know if there's any opening comments. Mr. Gill, anything you want to add?
Nope, I saw Jill's.
Okay.
All mine.
All right, Jill.
Good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
Okay, the Voters' Choice Act. I'm back here because in June, when your board approved the vote center model, you asked for an update. So I am back to give you an update of where we are and what our status is at this current time. I can tell you this is quite a team effort. DTEC and our communication media officers have really been helpful as part of this team as we've gone through not only the RFP and purchasing new equipment, but setting up these sites and getting them ready to go. There's been a lot of meetings, many internal discussion, and a lot of external discussion. So, Sacramento County elections are now vote by mail plus vote centers. So I consider this the best of both, because not only does everybody have a ballot in their hand, they also have the opportunity to go to a vote center with extended hours, extended days to vote if they would like to. Currently, we have 64% of our voters that are permanently vote by mail. After you get a ballot, you can go return your ballot with a stamp. You can drop it off at any one of our drop-off boxes, or you can return it to our office or one of the vote centers. If you don't want to vote with your vote-by-mail ballot, go to one of our vote centers and you can vote there. At a vote center, you will have the opportunity to vote, get a replacement ballot, register. Yes, you can now register after the close of the deadline, receive language assistance, or receive use the accessible voting equipment.
Can I just ask you, Jill, while you're on that slide, at the vote center, will that be staffed by poll workers that we would normally employ in our, where we would have multiple balloting places, or is this will be a combination of staff? And I heard you just say about folks with language assistance and registration and so forth. So, what is the staffing proposed for those vote centers? And is there a mix, or is it all county employees? Or
It will be our what we would call it our volunteers or our paid poll workers, and they'll be vote center workers. And instead of needing close to 3,000 of them, we'll need just a couple hundred, which will be much easier to staff and be able to pick those with the skills that we need, such as language skills, computer skills, that type of thing. They'll receive extensive training because they'll be using not only new equipment, but also being on our voter file to issue ballots, replacement ballots, those types of things. We're looking at about 8 per vote center. The training, I looked at the training schedule, and there's several modules of training that they will need to be going through. So quite extensive, but the good part is that if they work Monday, they can work Tuesday, they can work Wednesday. So they'll be experienced really fast, and instead of working one day, twice a year or whatever, they'll be able to work multiple days, so they'll have that extra training.
So is there, I guess, let me refine my question a little bit based on what you responded to, so that there is not intended that at the vote centers, either in advance of the election or that weekend prior, that you're going to have a county employee, a staff member that's going to be at those sites. And will you have someone who will be assigned, say, a grouping that they'll be available to for questions that come up? Because even with the best of training, this is going to be new for everybody, including the voters who will be utilizing those centers, particularly in advance of the
Yes.
election day that people might normally attribute to, when they make their trip to the polls. And so I guess I'm curious, because when we've had these in the past, in advance voting, it was typically at voter registration. So you always had somebody in the building that, whether it was yourself or somebody else, who could answer a question, could handle the registration if there was a mistake on the ballot, and all those things that go with this. But this has, a lot of moving parts, as you're well aware and have pointed out. But also there's some new moving parts to this, to this. And again, even with the best of training, it's going to be new to a lot of folks, both sides of the table.
And you are correct. They will not be county employees per se from our office. We might have some out there that have worked, within our office, like an experienced temporary for some times. But most of them will be our experienced poll workers that have come back, our coordinators that have come back, and there'll be area sites. So in this area, there might be like a van or a spot with our staff ready to go for either training or additional equipment or supplies as necessary. So we're kind of breaking it into areas and having that available close.
Okay, just one follow on this. So, but you're going to extended hours, and so normal working hours, or at least open hours for counter services at voter registration, are the 8 to 5. So will you have somebody available in hours on all those days, available whatever time the vote centers would close, available that, if somebody has a coordinator has a question, something unique, they can call and get immediate over-the-phone assistance from?
Yes, there will be somebody in our office at all times and available, if not in our office, well, always in our office,
Yeah.
but also at some of our sites, our assistant sites.
Okay.
And because each night the ballots will come back to our office, so we'll be waiting there for the ballots to
So you'll
come
be
back.
receiving those ballots that very same day? Okay, very good.
Every single night, yes.
Okay, I have Supervisor Cernan and Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I note in the presentation, Jill, that I don't think there's any mention of other counties that are also moving in this direction with this new format. So I think it's important for the public to understand that Sacramento County is not the only one of the 58 that are pursuing this new format. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. In the bill, there were 14 counties that were named that could move forward. Of those 14, 5. There's currently 5 now. And they are Napa, Nevada, San Mateo, Madera, and Sacramento County.
Great.
And we are the largest moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Peters.
Oh, that brings up a question. What counties turned this down?
Okay, so the other 9 counties, you're going to make me think now. I know Orange County's Board of Supervisors did not approve this. Sutter County chose not to at this time and to wait, till next year or next election year, 2020. I'm trying to think of the other counties. Sierra County chose not to because they're already an all-mail ballot county. I can get you the rest of that list.
If you could send us a memo, which counties didn't, and their reasoning.
Yes.
Okay. And then I had another question, because someone asked me this, and you mentioned vans with supplies. Are the vote centers all going to be bricks and mortar, or is there any intention to use an RV as a rolling vote center?
That you're talking about a mobile vote center?
Yeah.
Okay. That is allowed in the bill. Our office has, discussed it, and we have chosen not to for this first year. A couple of things. The cost of setting up one site for one day would be the same as setting up a site for 4 days. And we have to have the notification in our sample ballot booklet, so that would mean we'd have to have all that information like 88 days prior. And since we're rolling out so many other new things at this time, we chose not to do the mobile vote center.
So if at some time in the future you wanted to make use of that mobile vote center, would you have to come back to the Board of Supervisors to?
No, I don't believe I would. It would, because it's part of the bill and the opportunities are there if that's the way we want to. It'd be an additional.
I think we ought to have something, we ought to have notification and some,
We could provide you a notification before we do that.
well enough in time that we can bring it to the board and object if we want to. I'm not saying that we would,
Yeah.
but I think we ought to have the opportunity.
The plan was kind of set up so that some of the larger counties that maybe could set up a mobile vote center for voters, maybe with disabilities that were going to be meeting in one location for one day, or they were looking at a venue such as something like at the Golden One Center. And so we looked at those, and the security that would be needed in a mobile center would be difficult for this first go-around, without a site to actually look at.
Okay,
So,
well, you've
But
stated
yes.
that you wouldn't be using it in the first go-around. I'm concerned about the other go-rounds,
Okay.
okay?
I think to your point, Mr. Gill, and to the point Supervisor Peters made, we ought to, if that's being considered for the next go-round to the 2020 election cycle, or I don't know, this takes care of both the June primary and the general, so it wouldn't be until the 2020 elections. I do think that there should be a much advanced notification. There's the interest in doing that, and allow the board at that point in time to either bless it or not. So I think, again, as we did this, and it wasn't really widely known, I don't think, even though it was embedded in the bill, that mobile voting centers were actually allowed, because I don't recall us ever having conversation about that, so even though it may have been allowed. So
I think what we will do is, as we get close to those elections, we will inform the board and have a workshop, let you know what our process is going to be, give you an opportunity to weigh in, and if there's any differences we have, we can discuss them at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
that's fine. Good. Anything else?
Before equipment is purchased and like vans and.
Understood.
Before we buy that Winnebago with red, white, and blue lettering.
We've got a number of abandoned ones in my district.
Get words out of my mouth. I was about ready to say that. I thought that might not be appropriate.
Do they run, though? That's the question. You have to tow them.
Good question.
Okay, Supervisor Frost.
Okay.
I had
Sorry, Joe, we
also-
have another question.
sure.
Supervisor Frost.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same question because I noticed in the minutes from one of the advisory committees, the Voter Accessibility Advisory Committee, they were talking about vote centers in a farmer's market. And I didn't remember ever discussing mobile vote centers, and I know the state has a provision for it, but there's other complications around. You can't have it within 100 feet of a campaign, and
Right.
and when you're in a mobile, do you do it by radius? Do you do it, how do you judge what is 100 feet, and how do you enforce that, and what are the costs? And so I felt the same, that I don't remember us voting on mobile vote centers, and I think we should be able to weigh in on how that takes place, and how we launch something like that. So I just wanted to request the same thing.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a lot of concerns about the mobile vote center, so not this time.
Yeah, I can see where it could be good for seniors or, certain populations if it was in a controlled environment.
Yeah, maybe remote locations, but I
But the
think to the point
cost.
about the cost of it, as you said, the cost. Okay, all right,
Okay.
continue.
So part of this new system is a lot of outreach. We want to make sure that we get the word out to our voters. And to start with, we have a website that we have a dedicated page to, and on that website we have all the notices of all our meetings, all the agendas, and all the minutes taken. We've also added our brochures and flyers, so if somebody would like to download that information, that is available for them. We've been to close to 60 meetings, presentations already, so we have really worked hard within the office to get the word out. Community events. We were at the Dickens Street Festival in Elk Grove. We've been at the Chicken Festival in Fair Oaks. We've been at the Rio Linda County Fair and SAC Comic Con. So there's just a few of the ones we've been to. For presentations, we've been to the Rotary Clubs. We've been to the Lunch Bunch up in North Highlands, the Democratic Central Committee, People Power that works with the ACLU, the Latino Caucus, APAPA, and Capital. Both of those are Asian groups that work very closely with our office because of the language requirements. We've been in the county newsletter. We've been at the high schools, Kennedy High, SAC Charter, several of high schools, and we've done mock elections with them and made this presentation so they know. We've met with your chiefs of staff. We've been to city council meetings. Last night I was at the Rancho Cordova City Council meeting making the presentation for them. We have put together our LAC, which is our Language Advisory Accessible Committee, and our VAC, which is our Voters Advisory Accessible Committee, and the EAP, which is our Election Administration Plan. These are all requirements of this bill to move forward, that we have these committees for their input and information of what the community would like to see in these vote centers and how we're going to conduct these elections.
Okay, Jill, pause for a second. We have
Yes.
a couple. We have questions to Supervisor Stern and Supervisor Peters.
Great, thank you. So this is probably my greatest concern, as it is for a number of folks, in terms of making sure that the voting public understands clearly the new platform. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a shared interest in making sure it's a robust campaign to do that. But are we also, Jill, looking at using, I don't know, social media, YouTube, our cable cast here to rotate infographics and information? I mean, literally flooding the airwaves and flooding our computers and our mobile devices with information. Can you speak to that?
Yes, next slide.
There you go.
I will speak to
All
that. Yes, with our communication officer, Laura McCaslin, we put together a outreach plan. We put it into 3 phases of what we can start with right now, because right now we're informing the advocacy groups, those types of people that are interested and would be like partner trainings or help us get the word out. As we move into January, where it's getting closer to the election and where people's ears are starting to perk up, and that's when we'll start pushing a lot more of these messages. And then, of course, as we get closer to the election, even more of the messages. We're looking at making sure that they understand. Giving them too much information ahead of time, they're like, well, I'm not interested. The election's not till June, who cares? So slowly we're putting this together. So part of this social media, the Facebook and Twitter, we are posting on that now. Just little messages such as we had a training class, or we had an appreciation day, or we're out looking at this site, just kind of introducing the whole process. Just very slowly, but...
What about RT? Have you reached out to RT? See if we could, maybe do some interior, exterior messaging?
We have not reached out to RT yet, except to get some bids at this point. Members of our LAC and our VAC have both recommended that we reach out to them, and they are on that board, so we will be using, pursuing that further as we go in. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then one other suggestion would be maybe to reach out to our ethnic chambers to see if we can.
And we've started that too.
Okay, great. I'd rather, be redundant and belt and suspenders than regret missing, a portion of our voting public.
Yes. We would much rather overdo. I think one of the, you have another question?
No, Supervisor Peters does, but go ahead, if
Okay.
you want to be responding to
you.
Supervisor. Sir.
When you mention newspapers, I'd like to have someone from your office contact, I would imagine, each of our offices, 'cause we know the names of all the local newspapers, and, you know, the heaviest readers of the Bee are in the city of Sacramento, and once you get outside that, it tails off. So there are a couple of papers that address neighborhood issues throughout the unincorporated area that I'm aware of. And then I think you maybe ought to do a YouTube presentation, and then you could send it to anyone who asked, or the newspapers or the various media that you're contacting could look to that for the facts. And then I'm wondering, the county recently did an insert in some papers about the homeless services, that maybe that's something you ought to consider. It's expensive, but so is people not knowing.
And we have an appointment with the News and Review to look at that type of an insert.
Yeah, that's not who I'm talking about.
That's not the one you're talking about? Okay, then we will, because we are looking at something like that. And we have met with your chiefs of staff, and they've given us a lot of information on the local newspapers and online papers. We were in the Folsom paper, little newsletter this morning, and I see we have something going out in the Elk Grove later this week. So we
Of
were
course,
able to
as you
get...
said, it's still early, so I think it's important to keep it up, get
Yes.
the drumbeat, speak at community meetings that we have,
We
be
would
the
love
guest
to.
speaker, that sort of thing.
I think
But
Inside Publications is a key one. That's probably the one that Supervisor Peters is referring to in terms of neighborhoods.
We would love to speak at any of your events, so, and the more the better. We have, any additional questions? We have worked with our Sacramento County libraries. They are very excited about this. They will be, all of the Sacramento County libraries will be drop-off sites for us, and they would like to host a public education workshop. Those will be held in April. They are handling the publicity for it, and we're going to make the presentation, so that's exciting too. We are making videos. We're working with Sac Metro Cable and DTEC to make short little videos to put online or on our website. Public service announcements are required by this bill, so we're doing those. We talked about newsletters, social media, radio, television, and newspapers, and these, we want to be able to use these to reach out to voters in our other, in the languages that are within our county, so we're very conscious of that. One of the other requirements of this bill is 2 direct contacts with each voter. So we're looking at postcards, mailing them out with a little bit of information on and contact information, and those will go out, the first one in January, and then again probably the end of February, beginning of March of next year. So. Drop-off boxes, we'll have 52 of those. In November of 2016, we only had 16 drop-off boxes, and we had over 71,000 ballots dropped off. So hopefully with the 52, we'll have even more dropped off, and we're quite excited about that.
Joe, can I just ask you on those drop-off? So you say each of the libraries will have those. Then is there training given for the appropriate security? Because are those ballots retrieved every day? And if so, outline the process that's used for those drop-off boxes.
For drop-off boxes, of course, we contact with the facility, a contract is signed. Training is given to the people that will be there, and it's basically watch the box, make sure, voters can put their ballots in, if you have a chance, make sure that, say, your ballot's signed before you drop it in. These boxes are all inside of a facility, so none of them are outside. And we are asking, right now we're looking at a pickup schedule, which will be at least every other day, if not daily, depending on the site. Such as we had one in Ileton.
Ileton, right.
Yeah, and we picked it up once a week. And the clerk there was very responsible and locked it up every single night for us.
Okay, so as long as there's procedures, I think
Yes,
that, if people have a
procedures.
question. Yeah, I think accessibility and convenience for voters, and certainly in public locations that have secured facilities, But then it goes to, you know, what happens in the intervening time. And then if you have a very active site, obviously it sounds like you're going to pick those up daily. If it's for a little less active, then maybe, you know, a little less frequently. But
Well, in Elk Grove, we were picking up almost hourly at the one site we had because it got so busy. But yes, the Secretary of State has put ballot box regulations into place, and that includes, you know, the number of times to pick up, size of, you know, size of the box, make sure it's accessible, those types of things. So we are following all regulations and procedures. So at a drop-off box, like I say, opportunities there because those open right after you get your ballot. Your ballots usually go out about 29 days before the election. Boxes open the next day and stay open through Election Day. Return your ballot there, or you can mail it in. Vote centers. It's a universal polling place. Anyone can go to any of the vote centers. You are not assigned to one special one for only one day. If this one's close to you and you're driving by and you want to stop by and pick up a replacement ballot, do it. If you're in Citrus Heights and you live in Elk Grove, that is fine. So we will start by opening 16 sites throughout the county 10 days before the election day. And then 3 days, which is the weekend before the election, we'll open an additional 62 sites for a total of 78 sites throughout the county. Now, these sites are based on the number of registered voters. So these will give a lot of voting opportunities to all our voters for multiple days. So our current status, and this has changed even since I made this prepared this presentation. We are picking up or certifying, confirming our locations now. We had 3 sites, the Sacramento, this building here, Citrus Heights City Chambers, and the Greater Sacramento Urban League. We have since got contracts back from APAPA. And one more. What is it? Remember? We have like 5 sites now confirmed. So we're really excited about that. And our goal is to have our 16 sites all confirmed by the end of the year. So we're working very hard to get that done.
will those have geographical proximity to communities as well?
Yes.
Recognizing that you have to have a cooperative partner on the other end, but...
Yeah, great big map, putting them on, moving them around, making sure that we've got a lot of the area covered. And then when we add the 4-day sites, or the 3-day sites plus Election Day, the extra 62 sites, there will be a lot of coverage out there. And looking at coverage areas, and part of the criteria is to make sure communities are all covered.
Okay,
So-
Supervisor Cerna has a question.
Yeah, or another suggestion. If you haven't already thought about it, you might consider the location of our 9 family resource centers too, as possible locations. For instance, La Familia on Franklin Boulevard. We had the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative in the unincorporated part of the South Oak Park community.
Okay. We will be glad to look at those sites. I know we've been out surveying and looking at sites. We have 136 sites that have actually said yes for the days, or no, I'm sorry, 49 that have said yes for the 10 days, 130 that said yes for the 3 days, and 136 that have said yes for drop-off. But we are looking for the best of the sites because a lot of them might be all together. We want to make sure that they're in the right locations. We want to make sure they're friendly sites. We don't want somebody going to a site that they're not comfortable.
I would imagine too, you'd want to consider how well the general public knows of a site. For instance, La Familia is a fairly well-known organization, and their location has been consistent for a number of years. So that, I would assume, would be of import in terms of making sure you're, trying to check as many of the criteria boxes as you can.
Yes.
And I think that cross-reference with the fact that we have these family resource sites that have been static for some time may, lend themselves well to the task here.
Perfect. Yeah, we will look at those sites. Looking at all these sites, we are taking these sites, and the LAC, our Language Assistance Committee, and our Voting Assistant Advisory Committee are all making suggestions and helping us as we make these site selections too. So that's great. So that ends my presentation. Do I have any additional questions?
Do you plan to come back again before the election?
March is what David Villanueva suggested, probably sometime around March, if that would work.
I think we were looking at a March timeline to give you an update, and also in discussions with Jill and her office, her budget needs to be augmented for some further outreach that she has, looking at beginning of January to bring you that budget augmentation for further outreach.
Anticipated question I was going to ask, we already talked about that, was to have sufficient resources to do outreach, whatever that is. And I know you did a budget earlier in the year, and obviously, Nav, you and your staff have looked at that. So I think that's key to not only the things that you've been doing thus far, those things, including obviously mail-outs, but that outreach is real key for folks to hopefully get an understanding about, how this is going to work. And I think also to reassure folks the integrity of the election process. Correct. And safeguards that are in place for handling of the ballots, but certainly verification of those, and certainly the tallying and accounting for those that are cast. I wanted to just ask one other question, if I could. That is, there was some discussion, I think, in some of the news coverage on this, about the verifying of signatures, because there still is that on the ballots and so forth. And as I understand it, in this county, we're going to continue to have live persons do the scan and determination. Obviously, if you have some questionable ones, then whatever process you use, but it's going to involve people. It's not a machine that's making determinations about that signature matches with the one that's on record. Could you expand upon that a little bit?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Currently, our ballots all are scanned for the ballot envelope. We capture the signature goes electronically to our stations where we have live people sitting there, pulling up not only the ballot signature but also what we have on file for this person. If it matches, perfect, on it goes. And if it doesn't, then it is pulled out and it is bumped up to a supervisor, manager, and the final ones all come to me. Not too many of them make it to me, thank goodness, but there are some that are questionable. We have changed some of the laws, which I think prepared us for this vote by mail. A couple of the laws that changed recently was that we were able to look at previous signatures. So let's say a voter, you can actually see the progression of a voter's signature, that it has changed through the years. Maybe it got a little shaky, maybe it's a little questionable. And anytime like that, we'll send a new voter registration card out to them and say, please re-register, we want to update your signature if there's a question on that. Another bill that changed was allowing the postmark to count if it's received within 8 days. So sometimes people don't quite get their vote by mail ballots. They stick it in the mail on election night and say, well, I'm sure it's going to count. It's postmarked. Well, now it is. And that's a law that came about just a couple of years ago.
Give it 8 days, you said?
That's 3 days for the postmark. 8 days if we get a ballot that you did not sign, then you have up to 8 days to get it back and to come into our office or send us the form that says, this is my signature, please attach it to my ballot. So all of those laws have kind of built to make vote by mail a little more robust, so we can make sure more and more ballots do count.
Supervisor Cerna?
Yeah, Jill, I'm looking at the SB 450 infographic that was part of our packet.
Yes.
And I think it's done very well. You have a then and a now side by side. Has this already been produced in the multiple languages?
It's in Spanish. I don't think we have it in all the languages yet. We're still working on getting it translated.
Okay, so we'll have it in Hmong and Russian.
I know Tagalog, and I'm not sure about Russian, but if that's what you would like, yes.
Well, what I'd like is it to be in all of our languages, but I assume that you're going to have to limit it to the top 6 or most.
Sacramento County is federally required to do Chinese and Spanish, and then statewide we're required to do 5 additional languages, which are Korean, Vietnamese, Japanese, Tagalog.
That's for the actual voting information. Does that include this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions of Jill? All right, if not, thanks, Joe. We do have a speaker on. Yeah, we'll see you in March.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a speaker, though, so I would, at least one sign, actually, I have
Before you
two.
retire.
Yeah. Actually, I have two speakers, Frank Novotny and Karen Klinger. So, Frank.
I'll make this short and sweet. My name's Frank Novotny. I'm a retired soldier, and I oppose closing of the neighborhood polling places. And I am in writing authorized and requested to present the very same request on behalf of Mr. Timothy Knight, an Air Force veteran, and Mrs. France Driscoll, who is at home and ill today. And I have the three written requests here I would like to submit for, if possible. And I have been informed that this is an exercise in futility, a foregone conclusion, so I'm here merely for the cathartic purposes. And that's all I really have to say is this is obviously at this point in time an old habit of many people who prefer voting close to home, and as you are, I'm sure, aware, old habits die hard.
Well, thank you, Frank, for being here, and again, hopefully we'll get a polling place close. I said thank you for being here, and hopefully get a polling place that's close to your area in Elk Grove, and may not be right around the corner, but again, to your point, I know people take great interest in certainly casting their ballot. They get used to doing that in a particular location, and again, it's not futile that you're here. It's important that you are. I think those voices are important to hear, so thanks for being here.
Okay. Is there any way?
Yes, if you submit it to the clerk, she'll make sure we all get copies of it, Frank.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cernan.
Yeah, I would just add, I too want to express my appreciation for you speaking up, and even if we respectfully disagree, it's important we hear you. But I would respectfully ask you to withhold judgment until we know exactly where those vote centers are, because you may actually have a vote center that's closer than a former voting precinct location. Thanks.
Just to give a hint to Mr. Cernan's point, in that Fallbrook area, Camden area of Elk Grove. So see, we have the Sheriff's Communications Center there, so there may be a location that could be very close to Mr. Novotny and his neighbors. So we'll see if we can. Thanks.
Karen
Okay,
Klinger, Karen Klinger, Arden Arcade. I also oppose the removal of voting at the polls, which to me is the right of the people of every state in the United States. I believe what the European Socialist government, which is known as under the California Dome, what they are doing is totally changing the rights of the people. And it starts with, as I listened to Jill Levin, Registrar of Voters, I heard her refer to partisan groups, but Democrat groups, but I never heard her refer to a Republican group, but I did hear her refer to Democrat. I want to know when she's going to central committees for the Republican Party and other Republican Party groups who are very important. I want to concentrate and focus.
I think she did, Karen.
I did not hear her. My ears heard mostly partisan
She just gave
Democrat.
me the thumbs up. She's going next
I hope
week.
you give me more time for interrupting.
Wait, I'm holding your time. Good.
Stop the clock. I was just trying to give you an answer.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But I was concerned about time. I'm also very concerned about the, one of the questions that was asked was in reference to, and one of the questions that Supervisor Frost has on her list of 5, and I believe, I want to put this before so the people, is this correct, Flo? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Let me just get it set up. Turn it around.
I don't believe her questions were answered, and I believe they're, thank you very much. I think they're extremely important for the public. That's very difficult to read, but it all has to do with who's going to be working at the voting centers, whether they're going to be some type of background check. And again, is there going to be an equal amount of those who are, I realize they're just voters, but my eyes saw too many of a one-sided situation that we have in California. And I think it's most unfair when these people can be approached by nonprofits, and the two advisory committees are very involved. And are they going to be the ones that are also at these voting centers? The drop boxes, they're not secure, they're overflowing, and the votes of the people are not protected, and the people go there thinking they're going to have a safe and secure place to put their vote. Rancho Cordova, for instance, in their city council, they have a hallway. That's where their drop box is. Anybody can walk in, pick out those ballots at any time. I have a concern with how the ballots are transported to the registrar. Are you going to have someone certified? Who are the people? Background checks are very important. I'm going to take this now because I want to make Sue's 5 questions, pardon me, Supervisor Frost, 5 questions to be part of all of the material that is given so the public has a better feeling of what's happening there behind the podium. Also, I want to make sure that Assembly Bill 60, driver's license, how now that illegals have driver's licenses, I want to know how the people are protected that are legal when it comes to the state of California, which is under investigation, and I hope continues to be under investigation for voter fraud. How are we going to, those of us who are legal, how are we defended and protected against those who are voting and have been voting in elections in California? How are we protected, and how do the voting centers enforce voting only by those who are legal? Matching funds for voting equipment. I noticed that Secretary of State Padilla referred to some type of matching funds for voting equipment. What kind of equipment is going to be used? I think it's paramount that the Board of Supervisors are given a presentation here in these chambers on how those voting machines work, who they're provided by, who they've been paid by, because voting in California needs to have great scrutiny. I just think it's important that the public knows who has the authority to do what with our ballots, and I want to thank you very much. And one quick question I'm concerned about is the facilities, the buildings where these voting centers are going to be, where they're going, the leasing owners of these are going to be, and what ability they're going to have to get into these facilities at any time. I'll tell you, this is nothing I could ever support. It's moving too fast. When it moves too fast, something's wrong. This needs to be a couple years so that people have the ability to ask questions and find out what our polls are being replaced with. Thank you. And I do hope you get a lawsuit, and I'd be the first one to sign the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Just on that suggestion, though, I know when we changed out voting machines many years ago, we did have some actually, when we were looking at different hardware, we had some demonstrations actually in the lobby here, and I think also when voter registration, before they moved to 65th Street out at Branch Center. I'm wondering if there's new equipment for those that would go to the polls, if we could, again, for those that would want to familiarize themselves, whether just an interested party or actually a voter in advance of those vote centers, we could have a few locations, maybe here in this building and some other publicly accessible buildings throughout the county where folks could actually see the hardware and get a, I think that's, again, not a bad suggestion, Joe, and I know you've been here long enough to recall the last go-around as well, so.
I was here for the last go-around.
I know you were.
Yes, we did plan on that. We are in negotiations right now, and then we will have like an open house, a media, and we are taking that equipment since most of the voters will be voting by mail. Mm-hmm. Most of the voters won't see a lot of difference, but definitely voters that will need the accessibility features, we're taking those to the different locations throughout the county to make sure that they have an opportunity to review it.
And I think just to the questions, I know some came from the dais here today, but I think it might be useful to have a fact sheet that would outline the protocol. Again, as some have been very long established for movement of ballots, but the lock boxes, as you said, are in state law. There's a requirement for a certain, I imagine, size and security to that. So if folks can, and they can judge for themselves whether they, find it credible or not, but at least what we're going to use as far as process and protocol for receipt of ballots, where those are placed in these public buildings or others that have agreed to have balloting stations there. So I think there's a clear understanding, and if people have questions about that, obviously they can then pursue it to a greater degree with you or your staff, or obviously with one of us. So. But I think that would be helpful. So again, on top of everything else you're doing, I think that
We will.
To the security of actually casting the ballot and knowing that it's going to get there and that somebody's not going to tamper with it, and to provide much assurance that this is going to be as secure as election process as any we've had in the past. So,
Definitely.
okay. Very
Thank you.
good. Thanks. Okay, those are only two speakers. I thank Mr. Novotny and Ms. Klinger for being here today. And if there's no one else that wishes to address the board on this, this was a receive and file, and we'll see you back in March, but also sooner than that with some augmentation on the budget for additional outreach. So, okay, very good. So with that, then we'll move from item 41. We have two continuances, then we'll get to item 44. I know we have a number of folks signed up on that. So, yeah, we're going to do
For
42 and 43. Continue those.
Right. For item 42, it's the Arden Creek Town Center Linderman Appeal Fee Waiver Request. I need a motion to continue that to January the 23rd.
So moved.
Chair, a second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote. And then I need a motion for item 43, the Arden Creek Town Center Appeal of the Zoning Administrator's approval of the use permit, special development permit, and design review. I need a motion to continue that item also to January the 23rd.
So moved.
Second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay.
Now for your next item, that would be item 44. This is the Fruitwood Court project appeal fee waiver request with tentative parcel map located in the Fair Oaks community.
Okay, and we do have a staff report. We have a number of speakers on this request, so we'll hear from our planning staff, and then any questions from the board, and then we'll call folks forward in the order I received them to address the board. Okay, Mr. Pahuli.
Thank you. Good afternoon, supervisors. Chris Pahuli, Planning and Environmental Review. As stated by the clerk, the item for your consideration is the waiver of appeal fees for a private party appeal of the Subdivision Review Committee's decision to approve the Fruitwood Court tentative parcel map, which includes a tentative parcel map, special development permit, and design review to divide 2.64 acres into 3 parcels in the RD2 zone. The project was considered by the Fair Oaks CPAC on 2 occasions and was recommended for approval by the CPAC earlier this year. It's important to note that should the CPAC have recommended denial of the entitlement request and authorized an appeal, the item could have been appealed at no cost to the Planning Commission. On October 5th, the SRC considered the request and heard public testimony opposed to the project, and ultimately voted to approve the requested item. In approving the item, the SRC considered the staff report package that detailed various violations that have occurred on the site, most of which were based on complaints from neighboring residents, including violations related to trees, demolition, grading, and drainage. Following the SRC's approval, an appeal of the decision was filed along with the appeal fee. The appeal is currently scheduled to be heard by the Planning Commission at their December 18th hearing. I would like to note that the Planning Commission hearing is de novo, meaning that they will hear the entirety of the project. They will hear from members of the public and may decide to approve or deny the requested entitlements, and also could add, delete, or modify conditions of approval. In addition to filing the appeal, the appellant has also requested that the fee for the appeal be waived. The zoning code does provide a mechanism for the deputy county executive to waive fees in the event of staff error. The deputy county executive reviewed the fee waiver request in addition to information provided by planning staff and county council, and determined that no staff errors were made in the processing of the project that would allow for the waiver of the appeal fees. In the event the deputy county executive cannot find that staff error occurred, the zoning code states that the item shall be referred to the Board of Supervisors for consideration to decide if there were staff error or any special circumstances, which is how we got to this hearing. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of points. First, the project has generated a lot of controversy with neighboring property owners. Further complicating matters is the applicant does own other properties in the immediate vicinity that also have been subject to neighboring complaints, but those properties were not part of the entitlement request considered by SRC. In that context, county staff from various departments have worked diligently to resolve complaints when they have been received and issued violations when appropriate. Furthermore, staff conduct at the SRC hearing and voting proceedings has been reviewed by county council and found the vote to be valid. The Planning Commission will consider this and all of the relevant information when they take up the consideration of this project at their appeal hearing on December 18th. As far as the request to waive the appeal fees, the Deputy County Executive has determined that no staff error occurred, as I mentioned. Staff is recommending the board deny the request for fee waiver, thus providing reimbursement for the cost of conducting the Planning Commission hearing on December 18th. That concludes my remarks.
Okay, Chris, let me ask some board members questions of Mr. Bahuli on his presentation. Because the only question I have is, did you get copies of the correspondence? There was correspondence received on Sunday and Monday, or transmitted Sunday and Monday from area residents. Some of it relate to, obviously, the fee waiver request that's before us today, but also to some of the things you alluded to in your staff presentation that relates to activities. Have you seen that correspondence?
I have not.
Okay, so from Ms. Welch, from Ms. Boudreau, and from Ms. Brady as well. So it should be at the planning department. Should get copies of those if you haven't received. I think the clerk's office would have received that correspondence because some of it came through from you. I just want to make sure as a regular course when you're making, so you have that in advance of any presentation. It may not be anything new there to you, but that information was transmitted by clerk's office. At least a couple of those pieces of correspondence were.
I'm confirming right now.
Okay, but I just want to be sure, Chris, if you had that, because again, I think it was generally referenced in your report. We're not hearing the merits of that project here today by any, and that's not the purpose of this consideration, but I just want to be sure that you have, planning staff has those communications, because they do point out some of the things that you've referenced. So.
Okay.
All right. I don't have any questions from board members at this juncture then, and I do have a number of speakers signed up, and actually the appellant and a number of others, so I'll call Roger Britton, and then I have Charlene and Florence Brady and Doug Welch, and then I have a few others after that. So I don't know if there's any particular order you wanted to be heard. If that's the order you want to be heard in, Mr. Britton, that's where I'll call you in that continued order. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? I can hear.
Yes. Yeah.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Roger Britton, and I am here representing the residents of our community of approximately 50 homes in the Sunset Wood Estates. Regarding control number PLNP 2016-00292 Fruitwood Court. The residents of Sunset Woodlands Estates request that the fee waiver meeting scheduled for today and the appeal with the Planning Commission scheduled for December 18th, 2017 for this project be postponed or vacated for the following reasons. First, when filing our fee waiver and appeal, there was a failure to follow proper policy, resulting in the mishandling of our documents and incorrect guidance by Deputy Clerk Renee McLean. She provided incorrect information when our appeal and fee waiver request was filed, which caused our community to file an incomplete request. Additionally, the clerk board, Florence Evans, unintentionally gave us incorrect information misleading our community to believe the fee waiver and appeal matter would be heard in January 2018. Several of the homeowners in our area are unavailable in December due to prior engagements over the holidays and thus are unable to attend or participate in the December 18th Planning Commission hearing. Second, the October 5th, 2017 SRC meeting on this matter was not conducted in accordance with the rules for conduct of business authorized by the Sacramento County Code. County employees, Associate Planner Leanne Mueller and Principal Planner Chris Pooley, were allowed to address the committee after all evidence and comments had been submitted. When the hearing was closed and the committee was deliberating and during the vote, when no public comment was permissible, these persons made unsolicited comments to the panel. Our committee believes that these statements from the county employees not only were confusing to the committee and to the public, but also impacted the outcome of the hearing. At this time, we are asking to vacate the SRC October 5th, 2017 meeting, returning this matter to the SRC for further hearing or conduct of a full investigation with community input. We addressed this matter with Chief of Staff Howard Schmidt, who recommended we bring this matter to the board today and any other concerns, as he was unaware whether there were any other means to file or submit a formal complaint. Third, regarding the Fair Oaks Community Planning Advisory Council, we have the following comments. Our community attended the Fair Oaks CPAC meetings in large numbers due to concern about the proposals for the property in question. At the Wednesday, January 25th, 2017 Fair Oaks CPAC, it was asserted that contractor Mr. Burford did not have a grading permit. Jessica Brandant from the County Planning and Environmental Review represented the council that he did have a grading permit. At ASC, a check on January 26th of 2017 with the permit department verified Mr. Burford indeed had no grading permit. This was important because Mr. Burford was actively grading the property despite lack of a permit. Fourth, regarding the environmental impact, we make the following observations. At this time, as reflected on our appeal, we appeal all requests made by the applicant, David Burford, including the complete environmental determination and including all documents connected to the environmental determination or decisions. Applicant David Burford has shown complete disregard for the environmental impact his improper actions have caused. He has not complied with his signed written agreement with Fish and Wildlife that required he remain 150 feet from the identified American River water tributary that abuts the property at issue. Further, Mr. Burford continued to grade and remove trees rather than use due diligence by contacting the appropriate agencies during the migration and nesting of the protected Swainson's hawk. Additionally, the environmental determination documents should include a complete review of septic systems and any variances to address possible contamination to the groundwater and to the creek located at the base of the subject property, which directly empties into the American River. Finally, we submit the following comments. For a year and a half, our community has reported to various agencies illegal activity taken by applicant David Burford, i.e. grading, removal of trees, intentionally lowering the curb below code height. Many of us called 311 multiple times, worried about retaliation. Others chose to call county agencies directly. Some of those Some of those who chose to call agencies directly have been victims of retaliation or intimidation, myself included. This has been an extremely difficult task because we are completely unfamiliar with the complex rules and regulations regarding these matters. As a community, we are concerned that our voices have not been heard. We ask the Board of Supervisors to postpone the fee waiver and appeal until the above issues have been addressed, and ask the board to return this matter to the SRC for further hearing. Our right to peaceful enjoyment of our properties has been severely impacted by the builder since June of 2016 and continuing until present time. In closing, I ask you to postpone today's fee waiver and appeal until all matters can be addressed with the community input so that our rights and concerns are respected. In addition, I would like to inform the board that we, as residents and the board, would not be here today if applicant Mr. David Burford, a licensed builder for over 3 decades, had followed all the rules and regulations and legally obtained all permits starting in May of 2016. Thank you again, Roger Britton, for the residents of Sunset Wood Estates. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Questions?
Any questions at this juncture, Mr. Britton? Don't see any. Stand by. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I did allow 7 minutes for that presentation, so I'm going to go back to the 3-minute clock for the next folks. So Charlene Britton, and then Florence Brady, and then Doug Welch and Valerie Welch.
You got the Welches.
Good afternoon.
I have vertigo, so
Okay.
hold on, because I am. Whoa. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm reading a letter for, oops, these are cheaters, for Doug Welch today. I do have a proxy from him to do that. He did send it in, but he is not in town, and he was worried it might not have been seen or heard today.
Okay, so you're going to enter that record on behalf of Mr. Welch.
Okay. Subject control number 2016-00292, tentative map, parcel map, special development permit, and design review for a project known as Fruitwood Court tentative parcel map. We are writing to request the Sacramento Board of Supervisors waive the fee to appeal an October 5th, 2017 decision by the SRC in the above entitled matter. There are significant and important issues concerning the propriety of the SRC decision and the manner in which the SRC decision was reached. The projects put forth by Burford Construction in our neighborhood have created high concerns for our closely knit community, which is impacted by his decisions and actions. Burford's first constructed home in the neighborhood was sold to an organization which plans to warehouse severely disabled. Not only will 5 or more adult disabled individuals be living there, but over 10 caregivers, 24 hours, 5 for 12, 5 for the other 12. But as many staff members too. These staff will no doubt arrive individually in automobiles, drive through and park in our neighborhood, receive supplies trucked into the neighborhood. No notice was provided of the decision to turn a neighborhood home from a traditional residential home akin to all other homes in the area into a commercial operation. No study of traffic or other impacts have been undertaken. In order to construct this house, Burford first had to have the property pass a percolation test, as this house is not on sewer. Rather, it is on septic, which all properties in our area are on septic. The property immediately adjacent had such a test performed, and it failed. Burford lot at issue abuts a seasonal creek leading to the American River. Are the septic lines and soil in the area sufficient to satisfy the demands of a commercial operation with 10 or more individuals using the multiple bathrooms, the washing machines, high demands for kitchen, clean sheets, towels, clothing, and other articles, the dishwasher waste and kitchen requirements to feed 10 or more people throughout the day and evening? No one knows, and no study exists, and no way to answer that question. The second home constructed on a neighboring lot just sold, which is on Fruitwood Court, which impacts us directly, which the other one does too also. This property is on a steep hillside. Prior to the start of construction, it was dotted with trees and vegetation, which prevented erosion into the same creek as we have mentioned. Despite submitted plans to the contrary, Burford clear-cut the property, leaving no vegetation. Burford performed this operation with no county grading permit. Burford performed these acts with no notice to authorities of his intentions. It is difficult to imagine how significant erosion into the creek can be avoided during a downpour, another major environmental issue. An arborist report on the several lots yet to be developed by Burford abutting the above 2 lots described 43 protected oaks, most of which have been removed by Burford. Burford performed these operations with no notice to the authorities of his intentions. The neighborhood has little trust in this developer. Recently, without notice to the county, Burford deconstructed a county curb to accommodate a problem he created when he located a new home, the one mentioned above, in such a way that the driveway angle caused cars entering the driveway to scrape their undercarriage. Neighbors in Burford took these actions secretively without notifying authorities of his intentions. Neighbors instead notified the county. How many other undetected violations have occurred or will occur? Please grant a fee waiver to us. We have legitimate concerns that should be fully aired. Most of the residents have lived in our neighborhood for over 30 years, in our case, 40 years, and many are retired living on pensions.
Okay. Thank you, Charlene.
Any questions?
Any questions? I don't think so. I think that was...
I'm sorry?
No, I don't see any questions, so thank you for reading the letter into the
And I'd just like you to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Then following Charlene, we have Florence Brady.
Good afternoon, supervisors.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to request from you a waiver for the $4,062 fee paid for requesting an appeal to the ruling made by the SRC on October 5th, 2017. Although I have not attended many county meetings, in the past I have served on or chaired several San Juan School District committees. This included serving for over 10 years and chairing many times the school board's Curriculum and Standards Advisory Committee. Since 2000, I've been the secretary for several gem and mineral societies and attended their meetings. I believe I have a fairly good understanding of voting and parliamentary procedures. As the letter I sent to you states, I attended the SRC meeting on October 5th, 2017. We attended this review committee meeting to present our concerns with the proposed 3 houses on the 2.64-acre site on the cul-de-sac in Fruitwood Court in Fair Oaks. A petition signed by 45 residents, who are also against this proposal has been presented. Here it is, Florence. We believe placing 2 houses on this cul-de-sac site confirms to the existing homes on that street and within the subdivision. Having 3 houses sharing an 84-foot street frontage with 2 of these houses sharing a driveway makes for a very crowded cul-de-sac. Presently, there are 2 other homes on this cul-de-sac bulb. If you would like, I can share a map of Sunset Woodlands Estates along with a brief background on the development of this subdivision. Would you like me to share that now or later?
Is that going to be lengthy, or again, you can do it within your incorporate in your presentation if you'd like to.
I'll finish and then go.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay.
As the discussion and voting by the SRC proceeded, there was concern and confusion over the procedure by the members of the audience. I was surprised to hear the chair, Brian Holloway, ask, who sitting at the front tables was on the committee? How many voted? What number made a quorum? And did he need 4 votes to pass a motion? It was unbelievable to me that the chair asked these types of questions. As the meeting proceeded, along with attempted motions, discussions, and comments, several times 2 county employees, not on the committee, interjected their comments and opinions. In the resulting confusion, a member of the audience called for a point of order and requested the secretary to read the motion under discussion. This was not done. During the discussions, 2 comments were made by the committee members. 1, a request to table, as in postpone the discussion until the absent committee member could be present. And 2, something to the effect that it didn't matter. Whatever decision was made by the committee would be appealed. At this point, I realized the meeting had gone south. I urge you to postpone the $4,062 fee waiver and our appeal until these issues can be addressed with our community input. We would not be here today if Mr. David Burford had followed all the county's rules and regulations and legally obtained all permits before starting his building projects. Thank you for listening to me. Florence Brady, resident of Sunset Woodlands Estates.
Okay. Thanks, Florence. Well, I'll give you another minute or so if you'd like to try to point out on the map. So we have a handheld microphone. Wait, you can just leave it there. We'll get you. We'll get you a microphone. Hang on a second.
Well, I got my assistant.
Oh, well, okay. Well, somebody's gonna need the microphone, though.
I'll talk, and you know. I'd like to share with you a map which shows the 2.64 acres, right there in red, which relates to the Sunset Woodlands Estates subdivision. Sunset Woodlands was developed in 1962 from a former orange, walnut, olive, and almond tree orchard. The family house, built in 1923, was moved to a location on the 2.64 acres location, right there. Since then, it's been demolished. Along with the orchard trees, the subdivision had several hills and several parcels that have challenging slopes. All the lots within Sunset Woodland Estates are large lots, more than the county required 75 feet of frontage. Right now, the 2.64 acres parcel lot has the smallest frontage. It, along with several other parcels, was recently sold. These parcels are the 1/2 acre parcel on the north side of Fruitwood Court, the 1/2 acre parcel on the south side of Fruitwood Court. There are houses now on both of those sites. 2 half-acre parcels on Meadowwood Way, and 1/2 acre parcel on Meadowwood Way. We will show you where that group home is supposed to be, on Meadowwood. A drainage creek runs through the subdivision. It's in blue. This creek meanders past Meadowwood Way and heads south towards the American River. During heavy periods of rain, the water is flowing rapidly, with flooding occurring along properties adjacent to the creek. There is no sewer system in Sunset Woodlands Estates properties. All properties must rely on septic systems for waste removal. Size of lots in the other cul-de-sacs all have large frontages. None have a frontage anywhere near the proposed 35-foot and 39-foot frontages for the 3 parcels proposed on the 2.64 acres. Most of our residents are the first or second owners of their homes, and 45 residents signed the petition, which I've given to Flo Evans, against permitting the 3-part special development permit. We wish to see only 2 houses built on the 2.64 acre parcel. Now here's the bulb cul-de-sac with 3 houses. Parcel 1, Parcel 2, and Parcel 3. Parcel 3 only has 0.64 acres. Now we'll show you a possible layout of 2 houses on the 2.64 acres. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you, Florence, and to your assistant for pointing that out. Very good. And I know the cable television picked it up pretty well with the delineation of the various lots and different uses there. So, okay. Thank you. Then I take Mr. Welch isn't here. You read the letter into the record for Doug. Okay. And then Valerie is Valerie Welch.
Valerie for extra time.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Well, you got. All right, I did that without knowing that. Okay. So, all right. Then I have Matt LaCasey and then Nancy Bedreau. And then Nick Advias on behalf of the applicant on this. Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Matt Casey. I'm a general contractor and builder. I just finished my own home right next to the applicant's parcel. That would be the one to the south. My presentation will be just regarding one of the applicant's vast unjust maneuvers. A basic general application form applied for by the applicant was a request to waive a tentative parcel map and a special development permit, where prior to this application, the applicant did not obtain a permit. As acknowledged of any of this to the county, the section I am referring to is on page 2. The fee, consent, and other acknowledgments. He initialed paragraph 7, where he agrees to not alter the physical conditions of the property during the processing of this application by removing the trees, demolishing structures, altering streams, and or grading or filling. I understand that such alterations of this property may result in an imposition of criminal, civil, administrative fines and or penalties or delay or deny of the project. Shortly after the completion of this application, in a day or two, the applicant removed a large amount of trees. Some were heritage oaks, along with a large amount of vegetation. Then the applicant graded and filled large portions of this parcel in question. A large part of this application was discarded. To our shock and dismay, he had greatly altered a stream which is a tributary to the American River in order to aid, that we believe, the development of a separate parcel that was obtained by the applicant in our subdivision. The applicant simply disregarded this application almost in its entirety. The alteration of the land and the creek, hereby the Fish and Game Department on July 26, 2016, only 6 days after the application date of July 20th, 2016, put a stop order on the entire project. It appears that every issue has been brought up to the county agencies, has been explained away, conveniently overlooked, or has disappeared with the paying of a fine. It is difficult to watch this development get special treatment by receiving several possible variances. We abide by the laws and ordinances pertaining to our neighborhood. Is he not bound by the same? At this time, we ask that you waive the appeal fee and change the Planning Commission's meeting appeal date to a date in January of 2018. Due to a large number of residents, including my wife and me, will not have the opportunity to attend this meeting due to the holiday seasons. Thank you for your time. Matt Casey, resident of Sunset Woodland Estates.
Thanks, Matt.
Sorry about being redundant, but the point needs to be brought up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then I have Nancy Bedreau and then Nick Advis. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'll make this short and sweet. We've been here too long. My name is Nancy Boudreau, and I live in the cul-de-sac in the Sunset Woodlands Estate subdivision that we are discussing today. I have lived in Sacramento County since 1963 and in this subdivision since 1999. The project and circumstances we are discussing today have caused such mental and physical stress to me personally that I and the community in which we live, and I sincerely hope the board will give it serious consideration. The residents of Sunset Woodlands Estates request that the fee waiver meeting scheduled for today and the appeal with the Planning Commission scheduled for December 18th for this project, we hope it's postponed or vacated. I had previously sent letters to the SRC members through the clerk's office requesting that the proposed date for a fee waiver be suspended until the issue about the improper procedures made by the county employees during the meeting on October 5th be resolved. I never received any confirmation that my emails were received. Therefore, I did resend them to the Board of Supervisors on 12/3 and have received several responses. Thank you very much. It is our collective opinion that the meeting was improperly conducted in that county employees, during the deliberations with a vote in progress, interjected information and therefore seemed responsible for changing the outcome of the vote. A committee member made a motion for more information and was asking to continue the meeting in 2 weeks. This motion was seconded. The vote was not finalized at that time. The chair was speaking about vacating the vote, and at that time, he was interrupted by other county's employees. In my opinion, this changed the outcome of the decision and direction by the SRC. There were multiple other issues concerning the SRC meeting, but we believe this was the most important issue. I was personally at that meeting, and I have attended many meetings in my career, including many county meetings, and at best, the meeting was very confusing. We would like to receive a fair hearing without improper county employees interfering and interrupting procedures. Therefore, we are asking that the SRC meeting held on October 5th, 2017 be vacated and rescheduled, thus making the fee waiver and appeal a moot issue. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. We really appreciate it.
Good. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we have one more speaker, Mr. Mr. Britton, did you have a question? Yeah, we have the applicant's representative.
Real briefly.
Okay, Mr. Britton, approach the podium.
All right, this is going to be in behalf of Valerie Welsh.
Okay.
And this will be short.
Okay.
I just want to, I'm here to represent Valerie Welsh, a resident of Woodland Estates. Basically, I want to address the curb issue that is the most recent violation. David Burford of Burford Construction, licensed contractor, has done in our community. What he did originally was, when he poured that curb, apparently his driveway was too short for the residents that abutted the curb. So when the car bottomed out at the bottom of the curb itself would have to be modified in order for that not to exist. Rather than go through the proper channels to do it, he decided on his own to bring his crew and come in and cut the curb and remove it. He did not ask permission, nothing. So the community saw what was going on and we reported it. We got a response from the inspectors. They came out, they inspected, and they saw what had occurred. He had not poured the curb yet. The curb was still there with forms. And so it was deemed at that time that what he had done was illegal to remove the county curb without a permit, first of all. Second of all, he was instructed by the people from the permits department to how to reinstall the new curb. He was given those instructions and in fact provided, I think, written documentation, if I can refer to some of the county employees who were involved. And so they left. After they left, Mr. Burford poured the curb and intentionally modified the curb to fit his bill. Now, this is kind of outrageous to the community. And right now, Mr. Burford is asking for a variance to these codes because he deliberately violated the curb ordinances and reduced the height of the curb. I understand his engineer came out and did all these measurements and stuff. They're making some kind of adjustment with the other curbs in the neighborhood to see if it's somewhat compliant or close to or whatever. No decision's been made yet, but I think this is a very important issue. This is just yet another thing that Mr. Burford has done to our community. And thank you for your time on behalf of Mrs. Welsh.
Okay, good. All right, thank you, Mr. Britton. Thank you, Mr. Welch. Okay, then I have Mr. Avis on behalf of the applicant, I believe.
Yeah, Chair Natoli, members of the board, Nick Avdis with the Thomas Law Group on behalf of DN Burford Construction. I'll make my comments very brief. Fairly new to this matter. I have reviewed the record from the SRC, and while I can't comment on the myriad of issues that were raised by some of the neighbors, I certainly will review that prior to the Planning Commission. I think the record's clear that no staff error occurred and no special circumstances exist that would justify a waiver of the fee. Frankly, the general fund should not be covering the costs of this appeal. If there are legitimate issues, then they can be addressed at the Planning Commission, but they should be paid for by the appellants. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I want to keep my comments brief. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions of Mr. Abbas? Okay. All right, that's the speakers, unless anyone else was in the audience that wished to address this. If not, I'll bring it back to the board then for questions and comments. There have been a combination of things been asked here. Postponement, I guess, was it part of the request to postpone both the determination on the fee waiver as well as obviously the Planning Commission hearing, but we don't control that, but we certainly can give some direction or guidance around that. So, board members, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to talk to County Council for a minute. Were you at the meeting?
No, I was not. I did listen to the last several minutes of the hearing on an audio tape that was provided to me by planning staff just on the voting part to confirm. I mean, I will say it wasn't perfect. It was a bit confusing. There was, however, I did listen, and in my from what I heard, there was no impropriety. There certainly was no impropriety by staff members making comments trying to assist with determining whether there's a quorum. There was the most confusing issue was after the vote was already taken. First there was a vote and it did not pass, and so then there was an alternative vote. That vote, the matter was concluded at that point. After that, one of the non-prevailing members that had been on the losing side of that vote attempted to continue the matter, and it was too late. It was already done. He didn't have a right to do that under the rules of procedure. So it was done at that point, and so I didn't see anything inappropriate in the vote. It was, the vote was in accordance with the bylaws, and certainly didn't hear anything inappropriate from any of the county staff members that were at the hearing.
Okay, so from your standpoint, there was no staff error.
There was no staff error. I said it wasn't, textbook as far as how a meeting should be run. I think there was a bit of confusion, a lot of input that was going on, but I did not see any staff error, no.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I just, if I could just follow on your line of questioning, but let me ask, though, that this body, in fact, you saw an example of it earlier this afternoon where we took an action on an item, there was information that came forward that allowed this board, which we can still do while we're in session, to reconsider a matter. And so there is a procedure after a vote for a body, and I would assume SRC is governed by the same, now whether
different, SRC is not governed by exactly the same rules as the Board of Supervisors. The only way that you can have a motion to reconsider brought is if it's from a prevailing member. Right. And here, first of all, it was not phrased as a motion to reconsider. It was a motion to continue, which is not authorized, and it was not done by a prevailing member. And so it was not appropriately heard, and it wasn't.
I get that, and those are important distinctions. But had a prevailing member, after they'd had some conversation about it, chose to bring it up for reconsideration, they could have done that if there had been the proper procedure, and there could have been, then you could have entertained at that point in time, reconsidered a continuance at that point. Right. But the order, and I get your point, the order in which things were done may have been not textbook, to use your word, but it certainly comported with the rules by which you comply. But there is a process for folks to reconsider a matter while you're still in session. Right. But it has to be, the maker of the motion or one of those who voted in favor of it. And
to be clear, there was no motion to reconsider made. There was a motion to continue after the vote had already been taken, and that's different than a motion to reconsider. So that member did not frame it as a motion to reconsider, first of all, and he didn't have the authority to make the motion to begin with.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask to the point, though, and I mentioned this to the county executive this morning after the briefing yesterday and reading this and reading some of the letters. I know that with other bodies, we do have a member of county council sit, and obviously that's an allocation of time and so forth. And I think in light of, certainly this situation, but maybe others that have occurred that I'm not aware of, it seemed to me that time may have come with the level of activity we're seeing, and certainly I think what surrounds this particular matter as it relates to things that weren't before the SRC, but certainly have been made known to this body and to others today and in previous correspondence. I think we ought to look at whether council ought to be available and or sit with the SRC, because again, these are land use matters. They're at a certain level, and there's a certain procedure that may deviate from what the board or the planning commission would have as far as policy. I'm not saying that it has to be you, Krista, but I think that that's a discussion we ought to have.
We do have an update for you, Leanne.
Yes, we have engaged in that conversation with County Council. We met on this topic yesterday for both the zoning administrator hearings and the subdivision review committee hearings, and we are looking into whether we should have County Council present either all of the time or on some items, depending on whether they're routine or not. So we're looking into that.
Right, and we are providing training that I'll be there for on Thursday morning for the SRC and PRC.
Okay, good. And I understand Supervisor Peters had previously weighed in on that. I wasn't aware of that, so that's good. Okay, I have Supervisor Frost, and then Supervisor Peters still has the floor. I'm sorry, did you have anything else? Okay, Supervisor Frost.
So there were some accusations regarding the improper meeting procedures, but also there was mention of some work that was performed without a permit along with other violations. Is that true?
And that should, I'll have to caution the board, that is not on the agenda today. The only matter that's on the agenda today is for the fee waiver, and the chair chose to allow the speakers to talk about the merits, but that is not before the board and should not be discussed in today's hearing. That can be presented at the Planning Commission hearing.
Oh, okay, so that isn't pertinent.
It is not.
It's really not pertinent
It is absolutely
to
not.
whether
The
or
only
not we
thing that
charge
is-
the fee.
No, the only thing that's before the board is whether there were special circumstances or staff error which would justify a waiver of the appeal fee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions? If not, Supervisor Peters.
Yeah, thank you. I am going to move to deny the waiver with a couple of conditions. There was no staff error, and there's no evidence of it. And but in recognition of the contentiousness of the SRC hearing, I would ask that a transcript of the SRC hearing at issue be made so that it becomes part of the record at the Planning Commission appeal. I think also since we had testimony about certain departments, some disagreements between certain departments and the neighbors, they probably should be there, Mr. Penrose, to explain their decisions and or address questions. And since a transcript needs to be done, in my view, I think that requires that the appeal be held over to January, not this month. And lastly, if I could ask County Council to clarify if the neighbors disagree or the landowner, the developer, disagree with whatever happens at Planning Commission, what is the avenue for appeal there?
There is an appeal to the board, right?
It is.
Yes, appealable to the board.
Yes.
Yes.
So for either party?
Either party.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
right. But again, there will be an appeal fee unless it's filed by the CPAC.
In this
Well, actually, they can't, right?
Too late
no,
for that.
No, they can't. So there will be a fee for a further appeal, right, because the CPAC voted to approve, so.
So that both sides understand, my motion is to deny the waiver. If you want to appeal it, appeal the decision of the Planning Commission, you would be required to pay the fee. And the other items, I think the transcript is really important because it was evidently a very a hard meeting to understand. So that's my motion.
I would ask the question, though, so you're actually suggesting, though, that the Planning Commission, we can't do that here today, but that hearing, I heard what you said about that, because I agree that shouldn't be heard during the holidays. It needs to go over till after the holidays to allow folks to be there. So can we incorporate that into the motion?
I thought I did.
We will. And
Okay.
then we'll work with getting the right noticing out, because we had already sent a hearing notice to the appellant for the Planning Commission.
Okay, so we can do that here today then. That's fine. I would second the motion.
Right, I mean, I think Flo will need to work with getting that on the agenda. Yes, consistent with the board's direction.
I didn't hear what you said, Trista, sorry.
Flo can work on it, picking a date, whatever it is she needs to do, getting the
Planning
notices
Commission.
out, consistent with the board's direction that the hearing should be in January rather than the December 18th.
Okay, and that a transcript be provided to become part of the record.
We can provide that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I would second the motion. I'd just like to make one comment. I find pretty troubling some of the things that may not be before us today, and I think that to Ms. Peters' point about the transcript, but also the county departments being present at the time the commission hears this, I think it needs to be very clear for the record, maybe what's not only before the commission as it relates to that, but I think past performance certainly can be a part of the consideration as it relates to what's being requested for the entitlement. So I would just put that forward. That's my comment. That's not part of the motion, but that does concern me. That what I heard today, if some of that, even some of that's true, that clearly flies in the face of what I would think is good, good behavior as it relates to adhering to county codes and so forth. Okay.
Anyone need any further clarification? Okay, call the question.
Okay, please vote.
So we vote yes to deny.
Correct. We're denying. Unanimous vote.
So everyone will be getting a notice of the date of the Planning Commission hearing. So you'll have a chance to argue this in front of the Planning Commission.
Yes, Ms. Britton, you can approach.
Just real quickly.
You need to come to the microphone, sir.
Approach the podium.
Roger Britton, real quickly. Since you've denied it, I'd like to have a couple days to put all the monies in the bank and take care of this and cash the people's checks to pay the fee. Is that what you're...
Oh, you don't have to write a check today. I don't.
I already
know.
wrote
We're
the
holding a check, so we'll hold that.
I was already required to write a
Oh,
check.
okay,
I think
you're
we
holding a
can,
check.
we can work on that issue.
Yeah.
And just ask a couple days, that's all I'm saying, so the bank can do its thing.
That's no problem.
No,
All right, thank you.
You're covered, so.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
We don't
Thank
want
you
your
all.
check to bounce.
Okay. All right, then, that takes that matter, and it will then, as the motion directed, the matter will be continued to commission until date after the first of the year, and with the other things that were included. So if there's nothing further on that item, then any other items for consideration by the board, today's agenda?
No, sorry.
And someone said
We
Merry
do- we
Christmas,
do
so
have
thank you for that, and I hope you have a nice holiday, too.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Good.
Okay.
So we do have a...
Yeah, we're getting comments. I just want to see the other items. Do you know the items?
We do. We have item 45
Okay.
is a recommendation to remove ex officio member Joseph Devlin from the Adult and Aging Commission for failure of participation pursuant to the bylaws of the commission.
Okay.
Move the item.
All right, it's moved and seconded to vacate the seat as allowed for and provided for in the recommendation. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
All right. Any other items? Ms. Evans?
Next item?
Next item is county executive comments, item 47.
None to that.
Okay. All right. Board member comments. I think I had Supervisor Frost, and I'll come this way, and then Supervisor Frost, and then Supervisor Peters, and we'll go this direction.
I just wanted to ask, I guess I'm asking Mr. Gill and my colleagues if we can consider something. I was approached by a retired gunny sergeant from the United States Marines who said to me, we do not have representation at the county level for our veterans. And so I went in and I looked at all of our boards and commissions and did a search for, first I did a search for the word health, and it came up 99 times. There were all these different commissions and boards that had to do with health or mental services, which is great. And then I did a search for veterans, and there was only one entry in all of our boards and commissions for veterans, and that was for a veteran representative on a cemetery board. And so what I wanted to request today, since our veterans play such they are a big part of our community. They add a lot to our county. They want to help, and they're asking if they can have a voice. And so I wanted to know if Nav, if you could do some research as to can we have a county Veterans Advisory Commission or advisory board. I also wanted to mention that I did a little bit of research. They do have a Veterans Advisory Commission in Stanislaus County, and it's comprised of 7 members. They have members that represent each district, and then a couple public members, and then they have a staff member who attends every meeting to make sure that there are those resources in case they need them for legal or mental health or whatever. I wanted to see if we could look into having a county-level Veterans Advisory Commission with a representative from each of our districts to serve on that commission, and what would that look like? So I wondered if you could, if my colleagues would agree with that, and if you could look into that.
Great
for
idea.
us.
I concur. I think it's a good idea.
I will bring a report back on what that will look like.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Thank you. No, that's
Okay,
it.
Supervisor Peters.
Thank you. I have two items. One, last week, the CSAC meeting was held in Sacramento, and I wanted to commend our clerk of the board, Florence Evans, and her staff for being on site and doing all tasks that were expected and some that were not. So you did a great job, and I think everyone was very pleased with what went on there. So thank your staff for us, and thank you. Then the other thing, a little more serious, that I am asking the county executive to do a review of our sexual harassment policies, given the tenor of the day and us not knowing when our policies were written. I don't think we should be caught, with something that was written in 1985. I'm not suggesting that it was, but I just think it's appropriate to look at it, update it if necessary, and then also look to a way to disseminate it to county employees so that they are protected.
What I'll do is I'll have a review done and give you a report on what we found and what the latest reports are, what kind of harassment we have, what kind of training that we provide, which we do provide, so you have a schedule so that I'll report back on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good. Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to do something a little unorthodox. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to make my way to the podium.
Give you 3 minutes. I'm kidding.
I don't know if it's all going to fit. I don't think it is. I know all of us know about this recent guest editorial that Supervisor Kennedy and I worked on and had published in Inside Publications, but I thought it would be worthwhile to just point out for the viewing public that we do have I think a fairly thorough explanation of what this board has accomplished over the course of the last year, working with our executive staff on, as you can see from the byline, a comprehensive approach to addressing homelessness. And I would certainly encourage any of those those members of the public that are watching. Inside Publications is a free publication, widely distributed in many neighborhoods throughout the county of Sacramento. I believe it's been printed in all of the various editions for those various communities, and would encourage folks to give it a read. I think I share the sentiment by most of us that it's been a bit frustrating this year that we have been given so much short shrift here at the county for what we've been able to achieve in the past, certainly what we've been able to achieve in short order this year working with our other jurisdictional partners. But I think this is a good clearinghouse of information about what we have done to build a more robust continuum of care for our homeless constituents.
Good. If you just leave the picture up just for a second, Phil, I just appreciate you bringing that forward. But I would say that I would hope that that photograph a year from now would be a much rarer sighting along the bike trail or in the parkway, and that folks that are in those situations will have found a help through some of the programs that are highlighted in the piece that you and Supervisor Kennedy put together. So, again, maybe take that picture from the same location a year from now, and again, we'll be in a better situation for people as well as obviously for the...
You and me both. I will note though that I think is a file photo that Inside Publications had. It wasn't one that I submitted.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think you also point out that if people want to get copies of this reprints, that you were going to order up some, and so they would be available to not only members of the board, but certainly to our staff and at community meetings and for others who might have an interest in having hard copies of this or reprintable copies.
I'll be asking through my staff, of your staff, how many additional copies just of the story that you might want so that you can have it available to distribute at your various community meetings or however you wish to use it. I think it's a useful way for us to, again, help educate the broader public and our constituents about the good work that this board has been engaged with over the last year, and help get that word out. It hasn't been done enough, in my humble opinion, this year, and this is one way to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, Bill. Okay. All right, Supervisor Kennedy, anything you had? Okay, and you have an adjournment, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you. I'd like to adjourn today in memory of Kimberly Halcomb. Anyone who has run for office knows it takes a lot of hard work and money to buy the lawn signs, pay for the campaign flyers, mailers, etc. And Kimberly Halcomb, a former Carmichael resident, was one of those individuals who served as a professional fundraiser for political candidates and causes, and she passed away earlier this month after putting up a courageous fight against cancer. I met her some years ago when she was raising funds for a young congressman named Ed Schau from the Silicon Valley, and a friendship developed over the years as she fundraised for other candidates, including Congressman Tom Campbell, Governor Pete Wilson, Attorney General Dan Lungren, and then moving on to even higher levels, she dedicated her efforts to my campaign, starting in 2004. And she continued to fundraise for me in subsequent elections until she moved to Southern California prior to 2016, so she could be with her grandchildren and son who survive her. She had a real interest in the American River Parkway, always walking her dog there, and I think she ended up with some sort of mystical bond on the Parkway. At the time, she resided in the home of the former Carmichael home of Parkway naturalist Effie Yaw. And she was fascinated with that, and one day Effie Yaw's daughter stopped by, knocked on the door, and came in and told her the stories of how the house was built and, you know, what bedroom she slept in and all that kind of thing. I know she thoroughly enjoyed her years living in Carmichael, always remarking to me what a great meal you could get at the Elks Club, and it was cheap too. So she was a dear friend, a dedicated professional, and a lot of people are going to miss her, and I'd like the board to adjourn today in her memory.
Okay, thank you for that. And just before we do the adjournment, not a reminder to this board, but we just, next week will be our last week in session prior to the holidays, and again, so we'll have a pretty full agenda both certainly on Tuesday and I trust maybe on Wednesday as well. But if there's any last minute items, certainly you know that now, but if there's anything that needs to be done before go to break, we'll need to get it on those two agendas later this week. And with that then, thanks for everybody being here and for sharing your comments, and we will adjourn this meeting in memory of Kimberly Halcomb and return again next Tuesday.